All right, guys, very last chapter test of the year. This is very exciting. Unit 11, test review. We are testing over surface area and volume, and yes, there is a bunch of formulas. So I'm going to breeze through these examples real quick and just make sure that you understand how to do each of them. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that so that you can copy down. But make sure that you're reading the directions very carefully. This says surface area, and this is a rectangular prism. So we are going to find the surface area of the prism formula. Okay, don't do the one for the volume. That is not what we're looking for, because we need to read the directions really carefully. Okay, here is the formula. Write it down. And what I like to do is I like to color in what the base is. You can see I colored it in blue down here, and I did big B and I did big P. The big B stands for the area of the base, so the colored in part. If this was a room that you were looking at, this would be the carpeting on the floor, okay? And how we find the area of a rectangle is 7 times 15. So that's how I got 105. Now for perimeter, what we're doing is we are adding up all four sides. This side is 7, this side is 15, this side back here is 7, and this side over here is 15. Added all those up, got 44. So I've got 2B plus pH. I know what B is already. It's right here. It's 105, so I plugged it in. I also know what P is. It's right here. It's 44, so I plugged it in. And then what you have to think about is the height of the box. The height right here is the 19, and that is here, and we get 1046. This one is a pyramid, and notice how it says surface area. So here's the formula of the pyramid. It is up in the box at the top. The big B is right here. I colored it in. It's the base of the pyramid. So again, I did big B and big P. This is just a square, so you do 15 times 15 for the area of the base. That would be the carpeting if this were a pyramid-shaped room. And then the P is the perimeter. That stands for the perimeter of the base. So 15, 15, 15, and 15 gives 60. And now we're just plugging everything in, right? So the big B is 225. That goes right here. The P is right here. It's 60. Plug it in. The L, make sure you know what the L is. It's a cursive L for slant height, and this is the slant, so that is a 3, which I'm plugging in. And don't forget the formula has divided by 2 right here. So we're going to add those together and get 315. Surface area, this is a cylinder. You need to know the names, I guess. If you need to write them on a note card, then do it. But this is the formula for surface area, not volume. Surface area of the cylinder, 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. The radius is 8, so that goes here, and that also goes there. So notice how I plugged in 8 like this. And the height is 12, so I'm plugging in 12 for the height. Now how to type this in the calculator is the hardest part maybe, so we're gonna do 8 squared. We always do exponents first, and that's not 16, you guys. 8 times 8 is 64. Times 2 gives you 128. And then for this second half of the formula, you can do 2 times 8 times 12, which gives you 192. These both have pi's in them, so I'm going to just combine my like terms and get 320 pi, and please don't forget to put pi on your answer. I did not put pi on the rectangular prism or the pyramid because those don't have circles in them. You guys know that pi has to do with anything that has a circle. So the cylinder definitely has a pi, the pyramid and the prism do not. All right, cone, very similar thing for the formula. The 12 is the radius, so I'm plugging in the 12, and the L again stands for the slant height, which is the 18, so be careful about that. Add everything together and you get 360. For the sphere, they're asking surface area and volumes. There's 2 different parts here. Surface area formula, the radius is 8. How are we going to type this into the calculator? You do the exponent first. 8 times 8 is 64, times 4 is 256. For the volume, make sure that you've got really carefully, it's actually r to the third. Look at that formula very carefully for volume. It is a little bit different. So again, we're taking the 8 and we're plugging it in here, and you do 8 to the third times 4 divided by 3. So again, 8 times 8 times 8 times 4 divide 3. And yeah, it might be a decimal. Don't worry about it. That is our answer. Surface area is going to be the exact same way, except this is a half a sphere, hemisphere. So slightly different formulas, but you're going to do those the exact same way. Here's the volume of a rectangular prism. We already did surface area, but notice how, again, I'm coloring in the bottom. And that's how you do the B. The base is a rectangle, and how do we figure out the area of a rectangle? You take 10 and 9 and multiply it together. The height is 8, so I'm taking the 90 and plugging it in for the base. And again, the height is 8, so we get 720. Volume, this is a pyramid, so we have a formula again in the area of the base. This is just the area. You take the length times the width, which is 4 times 4, and get 16, and that goes here. Notice how for volume it's h, not slant height. It's the actual height straight up and down with the right angle right in the middle. So be careful about that, but the height that we're using is the 9. And then don't forget, since it is a pyramid and all the points come to a single point or a tip, we divide by 3. That's in the formula, and so we get 48. Volume of a cone. For surface area, we use the slant height. For the volume, we use the actual height, so be careful about that. But otherwise, this is the formula, and again, you just take the 5 and plug it in for the radius. And you do 5 squared, which is 25, times 18, which is the height. And since it's a cone in the formula, you can't forget to divide by 3. And again, this is a circle, you guys, which is why there's a pi in our answer. Number 10 is the volume of a cylinder. So we already did a surface area of the cylinder formula. This one is for volume. And we're plugging in 10 to the radius, and we're plugging in 2 for the height, and you get 200. Number 11, the triangular prisms are the one that I think we need to really pay close attention to. If you need to, put this exact example on your note card, okay? For the triangular prism, we color in the triangle, and I do the B and the P just like I did for the rectangle. And for the base of a triangular prism, you take the 2 right angle sides, which are the 12 and the 5, and you multiply them together, but it's not a rectangle, so since it's a triangle, we divide by 2. Remember, for a rectangle, you just take the length times the width, but for a triangle, you cut that thing in half, okay? So 12 and 5 are the 2 right angle sides. That's what you multiply together, divide it by 2, and you get 30, and that's what goes in for the base. For perimeter, we're still doing exactly what we did for a prism, except for a triangle, there's only 3 sides for the perimeter. So we're adding 12 and 5, and this side right here is 13. See the rectangle on top? So when you add those together, you get 30. The height of the triangular prism is the thickness of the cheese or the thickness of the pizza, or the only number that we have not used yet. That is going to be 3. Be very careful about that. And then when you plug those in, you get 150. Once you do the volume, that easy part is the only thing that's left. We've already calculated the big B. It's right here. It's still a triangle, and we still plug in 30. The height we already found, it was 3, so I'm still using the 3, the thickness of the pizza or the piece of cheese, and that's why we get 90 for that. Only thing I wanted to point out, it does say surface area and volume of this cylinder, and I did the previous one, so you know how the formula works. But just be very careful, because for this one, this line is the diameter, and we need the radius in both of these formulas. So what I would like to do is cross out the 12 and write 6 and 6. And you'll notice that 6 is what we're using in our formula, because 6 is the radius. The height is 10. Think about this soup can, the way that it's oriented right now, it's going to be rolling around. You probably want to turn it so that it's on its circle. The height of the can is 10, so don't mix up the radius, which is 6, with the height of the cylinder, which connects the 2 circles, which is 10. Again, we have a surface area and a volume. The only thing that we need to pay close attention to is this is a square down here, so it's 32 and 32. The 20 is the slant height, so that's the L, which is right here, which goes into the surface area formula only. The actual height, which is this number, which is 12, goes into the volume formula right here. You'll notice I'm using 12. Okay, but big B and P are exactly the way they have been for all the other prisms and pyramids that we did. For number 14, you'll notice that we have a cone and we also have a cylinder. So what I'm doing first is the cone, and then I'm going to do the cylinder. There's the cone, there's the cylinder, and notice how I'm just going to add them together once I'm finished. So for the cone, we're ignoring everything down here and we're just looking at the cone. And it looks like the radius of the cone is 5 and the height of the cone is 4. So I plugged in 5 and 4, and you can see like that. In a cone, you divide by 3, and I get this for just the cone. After that, I'm going to ignore the cone and I'm just going to focus on the cylinder, okay? And it looks like the radius of the cylinder is 5 and the height of the cylinder is 10. So I plugged in those numbers to the cylinder formula. And I got 250, and all I'm doing is I'm adding this number and this number together to get that, because it is a cone on top of a cylinder, okay? 2 left. When you're given a word problem like this and the volume, I would start by writing the formula for the cone volume, okay? You can look up at what the top of the page, what that formula is, write the entire thing. Those of you that were getting confused in class, that's because you didn't write the equals V part of the formula. You only wrote this part, and I see why that's confusing, because the 100 pi gets plugged in for the volume, okay? So you have to have the V so that you can plug in a number. When you write 100 pi, which is what the volume is, and again, don't forget the pi, that's part of the number, and then plug everything in that you know over here. It says that the radius is 5, so I'm plugging in the 5, but it says we don't know the height. That is the missing part. So I'm just leaving an h in my formula because I'm going to solve for it. You guys know that the pi cancels on each side, and what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. And so I'm going to do this. There were lots of us that were getting confused algebraically on how to solve this equation. So in order to cancel this blue divided by 3, the opposite of divide by 3 is times 3, and you have to do that on both sides. We are not just adding a random divide by 3 over here. Okay, you can't just add one thing to one side. So in order to cancel the divided by 3 that is in the formula already, we need to multiply by 3 on this side to cancel it. And when you multiply by 3 on one side, you have to multiply by 3 on the other side also. Okay, and when you have divide 3 and times 3, those cross out. Over here, we take 3 times 100 and get 300. Okay, what do I have left over here? The pi's gone, the 3's gone, this 3 is gone. I have 5 squared, which is 25. And I still have this random little h hanging out, so that's what I'm doing. And then in order to solve this equation to get h by itself, we are going to divide by 25 on both sides, because the opposite of times is divide. And you get h equals 12. Number 16 is the exact same way. I dare you to try it. Make sure you know how to do it for the test. And if you need to put this example on your note card, do it so that you have something to look at tomorrow while you take your test. Thanks for watching, you guys. Let's crush this thing.